So I'm just now teasing one of my 10 bosses here for his abhorrence of scripts. He just wants to go right off that script, and now I'm going to read the script to you. So. But trust me, the goal here behind my reading the script is really intended to make sure I don't go off on any wild tangents and keep you here late, because I could very easily do that. Now, as you all know, my name is Jason. I'm thrilled to welcome you here all to our annual meeting, especially with this being my first as your co-op CEO. These meetings are very important. They're an important celebration of the cooperative difference. And as you'll hear from me tonight when I talk about some of these things, the difference is key to how we've approached the problems we face and really to all of our successes. You all own this business. We operate it on your behalf as fellow members who are deeply committed to serving you. Over the past year, I've had the great fortune of leading this incredible team through both rewarding and challenging times. And although I have to say it hasn't always been easy, I am very proud of what we've accomplished this year. And so I just want to thank you all for being here tonight. Some of you drove from all over, so thank you. So my talk will cover three topics. First, I want to acknowledge the 8,000-pound dragon in the room, high energy prices. Next, I'll cover our results from 2022 and finish with a brief summary of our strategic initiatives. So with regards to this issue of wholesale power and fuel cost adjusters, complexity presents a challenge, and we've learned in our conversations with members that although everybody universally has been hit with higher costs, not everyone is at the same starting point with regards to understanding why. And so I want to begin this talk with 4 key points by the numbers. First off, 40% of American energy comes from natural gas generation. SSVEC's mix is right about there, 43%. The cost of fueling those gas generators is passed on to SSVEC from our power provider, APCO, and we pass that cost on directly to our members. This downhill rolling of costs takes about 3 to 4 months to realize. But the bottom line is, as it rolls downhill, there is zero added to it. It's a straight up pass-through. The mechanism for managing our fuel costs we call our fuel bank. The money coming into that fuel bank comes from member payments and from SSVEC's base energy contributions. The money going out pays for fuels and energy purchases, and we're supposed to maintain a plus or minus $3 million balance in that bank in order to stay compliant with our tariff. As 2022's year-end costs rolled to us, we realized we would be $22 million under collected, so way out of compliance. So there's the problem. Now, how did we get here? This chart is a common index for American natural gas prices. It may not be the most specific one to us, but I think it shows a nice conservative depiction as to what's happened in American gas, natural gas. Each data point along the x-axis represents the average weekly price for natural gas in the US for the last 11 years. Now, obviously there's some up and down, but in the last 10 years, prior to 2022, 86% of the time, natural gas prices were well below $4. There are, of course, occasional spikes, but those spikes were always followed by a prompt return to something like normal. That large spike at the beginning of 2021 was Winter Storm Uri. It was a deadly storm, killed 250 people roughly, and devastated electric utilities in Texas. That more modest spike toward the end of 2021 coincided with SSVEC's need to stop the credit that our members had enjoyed for some time on their bill. Now remember I said that big green bar there, that the 10 years prior to 2022, natural gas prices were 86% of the time below $4. Well, in 2022, only 1 week out of 52 saw that. So the point here is not just that it was high, but how unrelenting it was. It just didn't stop being high for a long time. Now, early this year, we began to see prices come back down to normal. That's part of what gives us some hope for the future, and hopefully this gives you an idea of the severity of the factors that contributed. But also, here you can see just how widespread it has been. It is undoubtedly a global problem. But the main thing I want to point to on this map is the absurdity of its key. If you notice down there at the bottom, the lowest bracket is 0 to 54%. You know where you're in some strange times when the lowest bracket for energy cost inflation goes up to 54%. And for what it's worth, those yellow dots you see spread across the map are the relative impact to households by country, and not surprisingly, poorer countries have been hit the hardest. And for those that are having trouble seeing the color differences, America is in the 70 to 75% cost increase range. And when we zoom back into our home here in SSVC's territory, we know all too well these increases are hurting. Since December, we've been running a 5 cent per kilowatt hour adder on our members' bills. That's with the intent to bring us back into compliance with our tariff. So an average residential bill of about 700 kilowatt hours would see a $35 adder. Of course, some are more, some are less. And when we talk summer months, homes can easily use 2,000 kilowatt hours, and that would be a $100 per month adder. And imagine the effect on businesses that typically use much more energy. This is a significant problem, and we're taking it very seriously. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we've done. First, starting with some long-term moves. We have to ensure long-term stability because what we don't want to have happen is our members experiencing a yo-yo effect of their rates. First thing we did was working to establish and bolster our local generation. That ensures that we're protected from the volatility of the market. And so the solar field you see pictured here in this video is under construction in McNeil and is scheduled to start delivering power before this summer's peak. Second, we established a fuel hedging program. With this, we lock in future fuel prices while prices are lower. We also ramped up our home energy audits and communications about energy efficiency because these things have both long and short-term benefits. And then finally, advocating for our members, and we do this by ensuring our elected officials and regulators understand our need to ensure reliability and affordability, like asking them to support APCO's efforts to build high-efficiency, fast-ramping gas units. So as much as these long-term moves give me confidence for the future, we understand our members need some relief now. So at the very beginning of this, we coordinated with local assistance agencies like CCAP and Salvation Army. They've done some amazing work helping our members, and we're incredibly grateful to them and to their donors, many of whom are SSVC employees. Now, SSVC's relationship with our farmers is an incredibly important one, if you caught what President Nolan was saying. It's important for several reasons. I gotta ask, so do we have any farmers or ranchers in the room tonight? Okay, I see a couple. Now, one reason I say that relationship is important is because, as you'll know, that farmers and ranchers started SSVC. And although irrigation members only account for 2% of our total number of member accounts, they account for 25% of our total sales. The reason that point is important to this discussion on energy costs is many of those same farmers and ranchers allow us to control their pumps. That pump control gives us the ability to shave a significant amount of our load when prices are high. That momentary surplus that yields allows us to sell power back on the open market, and those sales go right back into offsetting the member fuel bank debt. So for example, you may remember one infamous weekend in 2022 when California was asking its residents to not charge their electric vehicles. That same weekend, SSVC employees and our irrigators went to work to reduce load, both so we could avoid having to purchase during that time and so we could make $1 million in sales for our members. That demonstrates the incredible power of our relationship with our farmers. So not only do they feed us, they also help us keep our energy costs down. So what do y'all think? How about a round of applause for our farmers? Now also, just a few months ago, in December, our board approved unanimously retiring a record-shattering $5 million in capital credits. And I can tell you, sincerely, this was done out of a sincere desire to help our members during challenging economic times. And finally, in February, we made the extraordinary announcement that we would be giving every penny of our co-op's 2022 operating margins to the member fuel bank debt. So folks, we're literally giving it everything we've got. The effects, go ahead, yeah, that's a good thing. Keep those hands warm. We got more good news. The effects of this was announced last month when SSBC staff found it safe to recommend reducing our fuel bank debt adder by 20%. The board approved, of course, unanimously, and now we're targeting another substantial reduction before summer, and we hope to have an announcement on that very soon. Yeah. I can't help it, I'm going to go off script a little bit, but I can't help but compare headlines when I see other utilities that are just committing to increase their rates. You see your co-op doing everything it can to do just the opposite. Now, we aren't out in the woods yet, but I'm happy, very, very happy to be getting our members some much needed relief before summer hits and to see things moving in the right direction. And I can't help but note that the moves I just described are only possible because we're a co-op. Now, part two here, I want to talk about our business results, and there's more to measuring our business performance and financials alone, and that's why we also look at perspectives of our business from 4 additional categories. So for the next just few minutes, I'd like to quickly recap some noteworthy results and anecdotes from each of those perspectives. Now, looking at our business from a member's perspective, obviously reliability would be an important measure of our performance. Monsoon 2022 was one of the most difficult in recent memory. Wind and lightning knocked out 46,000 member hours in 2022, and car accidents accounted for another 23,000. Underground faults, birds, and critters in our equipment make up the rest. Thankfully, this was also the year we rolled out our outage management system, and that gave us some fantastic tools for responding to outages. And given the severity of the storms we were experiencing, we decided to fast-track our member-facing outage map to get information to our members. The monsoon storm you see looping in the background is the same one that gave me the opportunity to take this video of one of our linemen closing in line in McNeil. Now, I just want to be clear here, that video is looping. He's not just playing and making sparks for fun. That lineman is Owen Mortensen, and while he was working in the bucket, another journeyman, Richie Ellis, was on the ground. Both of these gentlemen had just returned to work a little after midnight, after being on a mandatory rest period. You see, we require our employees to take a 9-hour break after 16 hours on the job. It's a very dangerous job, so it's important they be rested. And of course, we can all appreciate the dedication of these guys and many others who come back after midnight. But what really struck me in that moment was what Richie was doing. You see, while Owen's above, making sparks up there on the line, Richie was down on the ground with his manager, Michael Cook, and Michael was giving a detailed briefing on what needed to be done next. While Richie was receiving the briefing, he was meticulously rebuilding a member owner's barbed wire fence that had to be taken down to access the pole. Now you might say, well, of course he's rebuilding it, we'd have to do that. But it was the care he demonstrated that really impressed me. No one asked him to do that, and I can promise you, he has way too much alignment to care one bit that a CEO was standing there. That didn't faze him. The reason he did it is because he cared about the member that owned that fence. And I share the story as just one small anecdote, one example of the level of commitment that comes when we hold our relationships as the highest priority and purpose. And it's because of amazing employees like these guys that we managed to finish 2022 with a 99.9871% service uptime. Now, I gotta say that it's just a click shy of our 99.99%, but I'm really, really proud nonetheless. So, how about another hand for the SSBC? Now, probably the best way to get the members' perspective is to ask them. And so surveys are a great way to do that. And I know, especially after an election year, they can be really tiresome and annoying. But I look at them, particularly from the reasons we're doing them, as our way of listening very carefully and intently. So for the first time in 2022, we saw director district level granularity, making it the most exhaustive member survey we had ever done. And why would we want to do that? And I think the reason maybe is obvious, but I think what he's pointed out here is that so much gets lost in averages. We know our county is wonderfully diverse, and so it should be no surprise to any of us that priorities for members in Sierra Vista might be a little different than for priorities for members in Benson. The goal of this survey was to understand those differences and ensure that our directors were equipped with the knowledge of their constituents' priorities. Of course, members of the board represent the whole cooperative, but we don't want concerns in more rural areas to be drowned out by concerns in more populated ones. And this also gave us some incredible insight tools on how to best communicate with and serve our members across our territory. So how about the results? Well, looking at one tool within the survey, the Member Loyalty Index, we find this scale. Scores between 0 to 50% indicate a co-op that's in critical condition. 50 to 70% is described as needing improvement. Co-op scoring between 70 and 90 are healthy, and anything over 90 is exceptional. SSBC scored squarely in the healthy range. So much, though, gets lost in averages, right? And when we break that down, here's how individual members rated us. 53% gave us exceptional ratings, with another 22% describing us as healthy. So if I add those up, I can say we do very much appreciate that 3/4 of our members gave us a healthy or better rating. That's great, right? But we're still, yeah, sure, I'll take some claps for that. Thank you. We're still left with 1/4 of our members ensuring or insisting that we do better. And when we dig deeper into the details of their responses, we find that most reported high bills as the primary driver of their dissatisfaction. And I think, given what I described at the beginning of this, it absolutely makes sense and it's understandable. But given the steps that we've taken since this survey was done, that I also just described to you, I'm confident this will improve in future surveys. So, although I'm content with the result, we are determined to continue to do better. Now, moving on to our financial perspective, that is important too. We've got to be sure that we're good stewards of our members' money. And we closed the year 3.7% below budget with controllable costs within target as well. Our equity ratio remains strong at just shy of 50%. And our members per employee ratio tells us that we're running your cooperative somewhat lean. Now, all those numbers are why we felt confident in our ability to give all of our 2022 margins to our members' fuel bank debt. Those results were not easy to achieve, though, because those same high costs that we're all experiencing in our homes are also hitting the utility industry. Lead times and the cost of materials are both way up, as you can see in the sample of utility goods. Lead times for conductor, that's the wire that we put on our poles to transmit power, they're running from 6 months to a year, with prices almost double normal. Wood poles are also delayed and more expensive than ever. Transformers are a huge concern nationally, with lead times exceeding a year. But I have to note that SSBC has a pretty good success story here and that I'd like to share. That we have a transformer repair shop with journeyman technicians who are refurbishing transformers to like new condition. This saved SSBC and our members, of course, about $150,000 last year, and perhaps more importantly, made us able to serve members who would have otherwise had to wait for delivery. Can I ask for a hand for those technicians? Now, the big one for us right now, though, is bucket trucks and other line equipment. We're seeing lead times around 58 months and really just infuriating pricing. I couldn't put a number out there, but dropping some curse words in front of you. It's bad. It's really bad. And I got to say, after what I just described with our linemen, I think that you all would agree with me that they deserve the best, and we're working very hard with our fleet team and others to try to get that corrected. Now, the third perspective examines our internal processes, the most critical of which are safety related. So we take great pride in our internal processes to ensure that we have a safe work environment, and our DART frequency reports reflect our focus on safety. DART stands for days away, restricted, or transferred. These are measures of injuries that require our employees to spend time away from their primary job to recover. We had a DART frequency of 0.60 compared to, as you can see there, an industry average of 1.9. So that's pretty darn good. Our goal, of course, is always 0. I'm also happy to, speaking of 0, it's been well over a year since we've had a lost time injury among any of our employees, so that makes me very happy too. Now, our commitment to safety extends beyond our own employees. We recently provided bilingual safety training to employees in area farms. And we did that in the anticipation of potential accidents involving farm equipment. Turns out that was actually foretelling something, because immediately after the training was delivered, a tractor collided with one of our poles the following week. And if you look carefully, you can see an arc flashing on top of that pole. that's on top of that tractor that is occupied by a person. One of the farm employees who witnessed the incident reportedly shouted to the driver of the tractor, "Remember your training!" So folks, this training and the employee's quick thinking very likely saved a life that day. Now, it's with this in mind, and also listening to our linemen who tell us that they often have to warn police officers and other first responders about the dangers of getting too close to down power lines. If you can imagine chaotic scenes around accidents or when wind takes them out, and those first responders just aren't trained to be aware of that. Well, we're working to rectify that. And so to address this issue, we began customizing and delivering safety training specifically for our community's first responders, and that just started this last month. Now, the fourth perspective of our business that we look at is our talent technology perspective. In other words, what our people, how do they feel about us as a place to work, and how are we doing with the tools that we arm them with? And I want to share some pictures with you. These 31 smiling faces are the people we've hired in just the last year. And these 29 are our promotions. If you add that up, that's 60 people in the last year that have moved jobs or either come on board or promoted within the company. So needless to say, HR's been quite busy, but obviously it goes deeper than that. I think what's really noteworthy there is that those 60 people have all been in their jobs for less than 1 year amidst incredibly tumultuous times. That's 1 in 3 SSVC employees, and you can count me in that mix too, who've only been in their job for their first year. And this is not to say that I don't have the best team in the world. I absolutely do. But it does mean that we have a greater need than ever to invest in training. And maybe since 1938, I don't think we've ever had so many people on their job for the first time than since then. But it also means that cooperative's experiencing a buzz of excitement and optimism. And this gives way to a grand opportunity to push forward on needed changes and enhancements. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're capitalizing on the excitement of newness to usher in advancements in technology and investments in training. Now, the fifth perspective and final is our corporate citizenship perspective, and it includes supporting employee volunteerism. Last year, SSVC employees volunteered a whopping 7,646 hours. That's over 40 hours for every employee in the company volunteering in their communities. Thank you. And environmental stewardship is obviously also a key priority, and I've got to say our employees demonstrate it on a daily basis. Now, as I mentioned earlier, member advocacy that boils down to ensuring that our elected officials understand the importance of reliability and affordability in any discussions around our energy future. And finally, cooperation among cooperatives is a hallmark principle of our business model. In the last year, we were called on to support our sister co-op, Trico, and we also supported Mojave. So when Trico needed help on Mount Lemmon, as you can see in the video rolling on the bottom there, our linemen jumped at the opportunity to lend a hand. And last September, they assisted another co-op in Bullhead City, Mojave Electric Co-op. And I'm so very proud of our linemen, our technicians, and our mechanics for their eagerness to help. We know And the key thing here, though, is that we know the day will come when we need help too. It's only a question of when. What's not a question, though, is that our fellow co-ops will be there to help. Even beyond this, though, it's the day-to-day knowledge sharing and support for fellow co-ops that's a constant. I really, truly love that feature of the cooperative business model. It makes it so we can bring to you the best and brightest expertise from across the country to support us in providing our members with the best possible service. Now, as a new CEO, my peers at other co-ops have been quick to lend support, advice, ideas, and mentorship. So while I'm on this topic, a few of them are here today, I want to toss in a quick but very huge and sincere thank you to Brian, Chuck, Dave, Phil, Steve, and Tyler. These are the CEOs of the rest of Arizona's co-ops. They are the first people I turn to when considering crazy things like fuel hedging or dumping margins into member fuel bank debt. And so the manner in which they freely share their experience and support has directly benefited SSVC members. So thank you, guys. These CEOs are co-op leaders down to their cores. They are brilliant, and they're also really good guys, so I appreciate them a bunch. Now moving on to the final part here I want to share with you, this is our future plans. And our strategic plan aims for continuous improvement in all 5 of the perspectives I just mentioned. We seek to achieve improvement through efforts along these 7 pillars of our strategic plan, the first of which we recognize that the ways members want to conduct business with us is changing. So we're deploying online applications and forms for things like scheduling rooftop solar inspections. Also, text notification of outages will be coming soon. Second, we have a real need to streamline some internal processes. We estimate saving as much as $1 million per year in operating costs and improving service quality in the process. Third, as mentioned before, survey data does show us that not every area is the same with regard to member priorities, and so too for electric vehicles. Some areas show very little interest, whereas others, as many as 1 in 4 members, reported intending to buy an electric vehicle in the next 5 years. So given that, it will be important for us to ensure our distribution system is ready to handle the stress, and we have rate designs in place to ensure our members charge their vehicles off our peak. Now, also mentioned before, there's a buzz of excitement, right, within the co-op, and we're using it to enhance employee training and explore new technologies. For example, drones allow our linemen to safely patrol lines in rough terrain without putting in unnecessary wear and tear on our fleet. Our broadband exploration finished an important phase this year with the completion of a feasibility study, and that study led us to find opportunities to support broadband expansion in our territory by other companies while we focus on our core business. A few ways we intend to support include streamlining our pole attachment processes and leasing dark fiber that SSVC owns, and including additional backbone fiber for lease in future work plans. Now, efforts to secure our power supply include the continued expansion of our solar generation portfolio, as well as APCO's efforts to expand and modernize its own generation portfolio, as I mentioned earlier. And finally, our safety improvement plan obviously focuses on keeping our employees and members physically safe, but it also includes projects to mitigate wildfires and further protect member data and our grid from cyber and physical attacks. Now, I've been to a few of these annual meetings as an employee of this co-op and going to other co-ops and just kind of watching how other people do this. It seems customary in these presentations to begin with a statement of the company's mission and vision, and I chose to close my talk with you all in doing so, to leave you with the words that give us focus. First, our mission is quite simply to provide safe, reliable, affordable service to our members. It's those 3 adjectives in that order, and that's what we do every day. Our vision is for the communities we love and live in to be empowered, and we aim to see this evident in business associates counting on us as a trusted and supportive partner, employees who are demonstrably and measurably engaged, and members satisfied at record levels. And then the purpose that drives us and all of this is our relationships with our communities, our friends and families, and our coworkers. And I share this toward the end of my presentation to punctuate the importance of these words. They aren't just there for poles and wires, and we didn't draft them for solar panels or electric vehicles. Obviously, they exist for our people. The employees who are happy to serve you daily, and the families of those employees that support them. The directors who ensure we are always held accountable to keeping our members' interests at heart. And of course, you all, our members. I just want to thank you all. It's been an absolute honor to share this with you, this being my first annual meeting. It's the honor of a lifetime to be able to do this job for you, and I hope to continue to do it as best I possibly can. Thank you.